Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, so you guys have the policy plan and the briefing document in your guys' packet already, so I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things and then answer any questions or any specific go over any specific sections that you guys have. So mainly I just wanted to reiterate that mainly all of this document is just state code that we're just putting in one spot so that all of staff can get it, keep everything consistent across departments. And then the other thing is just that this continues kind of the ongoing movement that we've had in the recorder's office to make everything more available online so that members of the public can access all of these public documents and make it easier for staff members to access all of this efficiently as well. So those were the main things. Is there any questions or sections that you guys wanted to go over? So if the actual yeah. Correct, yeah. Nothing will be on the website that has any private information whatsoever. It's just mainly like minutes, agendas, and anything that doesn't have private information on it.
Okay, thank you, Lexi.
Awesome.
So Lexi, this has been kind of a process to get to this point, a lot of work, and that's commendable to do that. That's just another example of our city trying to always be cutting edge to make things more efficient, to be proactive for the regulatory reforms that we need to have going on. From what I understand, that we're kind of setting the standard for this. How many other cities around the state have done this that you're aware of?
You know, there's at least 2 that have their own retention schedule because I kind of modeled ours after theirs as a template. But from in talking with the state archives, not very many have created their own and have kind of a municipal specific. So yeah, kind of cutting edge.
And this will also provide good storage permanently for our records. They don't need to be kept on site here in hard copy form or paper form any longer. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, the electronic format can be the main format.
Boy, that cuts down on a lot of work, doesn't it?
Mayor Pro Tem, can I say something?
Please.
You know, I read through the whole thing, and very good, very professional. I mean, you just did a great job. And our city recorder office, I think, is second to none. So you guys are always doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
I also read through it too, and I just want to thank you also for sending it early, just to give us a lot of time. That I read through it and don't have any concerns with it. So
I might have one comment. We can't let Lexi sit down so quickly. She enjoys coming before the council. One thing I think is important to recognize, and it goes back to Councilman Coates' discussion about grandma. If we maintain records and we have them longer than what we're required to or what our schedule says, then we have to keep them somewhere and we have to go through and find them if necessary. So one of the things we're doing here is we're saying how long we want to keep them, but we're also setting that if it says 5 years, then after that we're not keeping them. So we're not going to have them available. We don't have to go dig through our records to find things that we feel like 5 years is the right amount of time. So as you're voting for that, just recognize that's also what we're doing. We're going to ask our staff, please don't keep records unless there's a reason that you need a certain record longer than that. So when a grandma request comes in for something that's 30 years ago, we just can instantly say we don't retain that record.
And it's really important that it's consistent across the whole city because we have a lot of records that end up in a lot of different departments. They all have duplicates. So if you say that like an agreement is gone after 7 years, but another department has been keeping a copy, it makes it really hard for grandma to track down all of the additional copies that haven't been destroyed according to the retention.
Any other questions, council? Well, we appreciate you. You did a great job, your first presentation. And just for information, council, this item will come back in our regular meeting, 8A, for a vote. So appreciate you. Thank you. Our next item, item number 3, This is an update, George Washington Boulevard and the Southern Parkway interchange. This will be addressed by our city engineer, Paul Mogul. I'm really excited to hear about this. There's things happening out there.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Yeah, so several months back, we presented on, back when this project was in the design phase, presented on this. We had Lee Cabell with Horrocks Engineers present on this, and now that it's ready for construction, we thought we'd bring it back to the council to present on it. And so I'll turn the time over. We have with us Lee Cabell with Horrocks Engineers. He was the project manager for this project, and so I'll turn the time over to him to give us just an update, and then after that we can answer any questions that the council may have.
Well, welcome, Mr. Cabell. I haven't seen you for a while. Welcome to beautiful Washington.
It's been a while. Good to be back. Thank you. Good to be back here on a good project with good news and see things moving forward. Things just don't seem to be slowing down in our community, do they? With that being said, just kind of wanted to give you a brief update on the George Washington Boulevard Southern Parkway interchange. So I think last time I was here, we kind of just talked a little bit about the configuration of the layout. The map you're seeing in front of you is the final configuration and layout of the interchange. A little bit of history. We're kind of looking at the interchange and looking at the Southern Parkway and George Washington Boulevard. We had put the design together with the Southern Parkway staying exactly the same as it was, and putting George Washington Boulevard underneath the Southern Parkway. We got that all designed and laid out, kind of with the full design scenario. And the project came out to about $16 million, which was at the time about $6 million more than what was in the budget for the project, right? So we kind of went back and redesigned the interchange. And as part of that redesign, what we did is we did several iterations of actually raising the Southern Parkway up so we wouldn't have to dig George Washington Boulevard so much underneath, because it's a little cheaper to raise it than it is to dig, right? So after we did that a little ways, we actually ended up raising the Southern Parkway about 4 feet from where it is right now, which, and we did a couple of other things. One of the things you'll notice, for example, like on the Warner Valley Road interchange, when you're going southbound, you know, you get off on that ramp and it still seems like you're going for another mile before you get to the street, right? Well, part of that was done so that when they come and finish building the southbound, you know, part of the Southern Parkway, all those ramps are right in the exact right spot where they're supposed to be, so they don't have to do anything, just pave, tie in. Well, as you can see from that project, right, that adds a lot of cost to build those out to that extent. So one of the other things that we did is we went back in and really shortened up the ramps here and just tied them back in to the road that it would be, and kind of, you know, kick that can down the road, so to speak, a little bit. So when they do come by back in the future and add that direction, there'll be a little more ramp work we'll have to do at that point, right? But as a result of all those different changes, we were able to shave about $4 or $5 million off of the overall construction cost. So, and then at the same time, you're probably aware the city was successful in getting another $2.5 million from the legislature for your project, which puts you at about $12.8 million total available funding. Because there's federal funds in the project went out to bid through UDOT as the oversight. The bids opened yesterday. You know, the good news is the bid was within 2% of our engineer's estimate. You know, maybe not quite so good of news is it was 2% over instead of 2% under. But regardless, the bid came in at around 10.3 million, almost 10.4 million, which when you combine that with all the other kind of engineering costs, oversight costs, miscellaneous costs that go with it, the total project budget right now is sitting at about 12.6, so still a few $100,000 under the funding that's available, right? And That number also includes about $75,000 for contractor incentives. And by that is, if they get the road a certain smoothness or a couple of things, they get a couple of extra dollars for the quality of their work. And then there's also about $500,000 in that budget for contingencies that just might come up during construction. So, there's the possibility that a few $100,000 more could be coming back into the budget depending on when it's all done. But you got to make a long story short, with a significant amount of rework on our part and under the city's direction and UDOT, we were able to get that down back within the budget. And considering that we didn't bid the project at the most ideal time of the year in the middle of the summer, we still got some good bids on it. So that's encouraging. Don't know who the low bidder is yet. The abstracts are still being evaluated, and they blind the bidders until they know all the numbers and everything's done. They met the requirements, and then they'll announce who that was. I would expect that would be in the next couple of days, but you didn't hear it from me, but we did get some good contractors to bid on that. So I think we'll have a good experience with that based on the track run. The construction time frame that the parent low bidder put in there is about 8 months, a little less than 8 months. The contract documents call for no later than about an August 1st notice to proceed. So that would put the construction through about March, April, depending on the weather and everything goes well, to have it all done. So that's kind of the status. As far as the design, you see what it looks like from an aesthetics purpose. One of the other things we did to help save costs was to really, bare bone the aesthetics. So it's not going to look near as fancy as exit as the Main Street interchange will be when it's done. It kind of looks like Warner Valley Road and Long Valley Road and the other ones that are out there, very just bare bone with some basic couple of color aesthetics that are covered within the normal budget of the project. That is about the bulk of my report, I guess, unless you have some additional questions.
Lee, could you just clarify more of those aesthetics?
If you remember out of Long Valley, I think it's just really like some paint, maybe on some of the outside of the girders, but no specialty landscaping, not a lot of rock mulch or any of that kind of stuff. It's just pretty bare with broadcast seed on the side slopes of the fill embankments, and mostly concrete colored, and maybe one other paint color at a couple of spots on the girders or something to put that together.
Lee, did you have I might have missed at the start time?
What's that?
When do you plan on starting construction?
Per the contract, it's August 1st is when,
1st of
or
August.
if not a little bit sooner. And it just depends on how long it takes UDOT and the contractor to get their paperwork and bonds and everything squared away. That's usually about 4 to 6 weeks. So, it could be maybe a little sooner, but I would kind of bank on August through March.
So since this is a UDOT bid project, this isn't one that the city will approve. It'll go that way. We secured the funds and we approved that. And at this point,
Yeah, right.
The approvals go through UDOT.
You'll, just to kind of remind you, there was about $7 million of federal funds in the project that the city obtained. The city's match requirement for that was about $500,000. And then on top of that $500,000, the city added about $2.8 million of their own funds to get us, and then with the 2.5 of UDOT to get us up to the kind of the 12 million. So kind of the order and the way that money is spent is the federal money and the match money spent first, and then the UDOT money, and then your money is spent last, so to speak. So out of the 2.8 that you contributed out of your federal funds, if there's any left over at the end of the day, that'll come back to you guys.
because the money from the legislature goes directly to UDOT. It doesn't come to the city. It's just
It goes to the,
allocated from the legislature
Yeah.
to UDOT for this project.
yeah.
I think this is amazing. I mean, this is the first time that we've been stopping the slide, or at least maybe even going the other direction a little bit. You guys have done a fantastic job. Our whole team has done a great job to get this done. And I just would recognize that we now have finished George Washington Boulevard everywhere that it's grayed out up there. So
Right.
we're ready to tie in as well on our side. And that's been a significant investment from the city to do the project that goes out
Yeah.
to. So in addition to our match money, we have
Yeah,
tied in the road.
Everyone was really great to work with. We, when we changed the profile and things, we had to tweak the profile on George Washington Boulevard, and there's some irrigation lines and some water lines and things that had to be moved around that took a little extra effort. But yeah, so far I think it's all good and should be ready to go, and it'll all tie in together and be just right?
This has been such a tough one on Paul. When he started this, he had hair. But that's good.
Right? So anyway, any additional questions?
Council, any questions for?
Can I just ask a curiosity question? So I've always noticed that at least parts of the southbound lane have been, the road bed has been, partially worked on. How much have they done on that? Like, eventually when they decide to do the southbound lane, how much more additional work do they have to do on that road bed?
Yeah, that road was built up to there's kind of 2 or 3 different layers of pavement, right? So one's kind of a sub-base layer, and then on top of that is a layer, I can't remember what the section is, it might be like 12 to 18 inches of kind of a more fine gravelly road base on top of that, right? And then the asphalt on top of that.
So they may have
So
to
they
do-
built it up to that base level with the thought that they would just be able to come through, lay down those top easy layers of asphalt and
Go for it.
pave and go for it,
That
right?
was smart to do.
And we did, as part of the project, that bid amount does include, as you see on there, we're only building the bridge and everything for the one direction, but we did take that part that's kind of partially constructed and also raise that, so it's back in the same state that it is right now. So in the future, you just add the bridge in and pave and go.
So, and then you probably don't know just because it's so far down, but I'm just curious if you've had any rumblings from UDOT of when they're going to widen that road.
Not yet.
Not anytime soon.
No, it's not on any part of their funded long-range plan yet, which goes out through 2029 or 2030. It's not indicated as a project there yet, so I would expect it's going to be at least after that, unless something,
Okay.
crazy happens. But
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mogul, city engineer. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope. Sounds good.
So council, one thing that I just would like to talk about for just a second regarding this project is that during this last legislative session, it was mentioned by Mr. Cabal about the 2.5 million. So that was initiated by staff. Jordan wrote a masterful document. Mayor Staley went up and presented it to our legislators in the proper committee, and to my knowledge, that was the first award that we had received as city from the legislature for that type of a distribution. So, that was a great effort. Appreciate Jordan, Jeremy, Rusty, everyone that was involved in that, and of course, Mayor Staley for presenting. And I can brag a little bit on the mayor because he's not here, but the committee that voted on that told me that his presentation was one of the best that they'd ever seen. So appreciate him and everyone's efforts. If we can keep our citizens' money in our budget and not being spent on overpasses, then that's a win. Anything else before we move on, council? Good. Okay, moving right along. Our last agenda item for the workshop it's in regards to a request for proposal, an RFP, where we'll have a discussion regarding city-owned property that is located at 175 West Buena Vista Boulevard, which would be just at the top of Main Street, in that area, just on the north side of where Main Street intersects with Buena Vista. And our Economic Development Director, Rusty Hughes, will speak to this.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. This is not the first time we've looked at this property, and it won't be the last. But I'll kind of walk through my briefing document. We'll give you an overview of where we're at in the process. So last time we met on April 26th, it was for the public comment on the disposal. That was part of part of our city ordinance that we needed to do that. And now I have in front of you a draft RFP. So and then I just passed out a sample. We can change this. This is not meant to be the final, but it gives you an idea of what that process might look like. And then I would be asking for your feedback on setting that open date, the close date, some of the particulars of this. And then if you have any comments with the RFP draft that I included in your packet. And I'm happy to go over that to the extent that you'd like to. I will note that on the, as the different city departments are looking at the piece, we wanted to get everything in place as far as all the utility easements and everything conveyed back to the city already before we engage with a developer for this property. There's one that's left out but the city attorney is already aware of it, and it's included in the southernmost easement, the utility easement's a 30-foot easement along I-15. There's a trail plan for that, so that will be included in that 30-foot. We just need to put the note on. So I'm sure our city attorney may have already done it.
Yes, that's done.
Perfect. Okay. So now we're really just looking at, we'll have a little bit of discussion. Maybe I'll just give an overview of things that we're taking into consideration with this piece. I know that, as the Economic Development Director, I can't tell you how helpful it is to have a very supportive council and mayor and leadership at the city for economic development endeavors and bringing some of these much needed commercial projects to the city. This is a prime location. It's freeway frontage. It has great line of sight, or not freeway frontage. It will actually be at the new intersection. It's about just over 11 acres of buildable space there. And we have already received a lot of interest in this piece from a whole range of different developments. So I do expect the RFP to have, we want to cast a really wide net, and I do expect to have quite a bit come in. So this schedule that I hesitated to give you, which is why it wasn't in your packet, may need to adjust a little bit depending on the amount of responses or proposals that we get for that. I will just say on the overview, that's probably the best way to just go through this piece. I have a reminder of Washington City's main goals. So, and I would say that if I had 10 points, if we're just looking at this from an economic development perspective, which I get to do, but you don't always get to do, I would say that if I had 10 points to assign to these three priorities for economic development, one being sales tax base, increasing property tax base, and buying power through well-paying jobs. That's just putting money in Washington City residents' pockets so that raises the spending power of our residents. I would say I as a priority, because of the way it impacts the city, I would assign 8 of those 10 points to sales tax. And I think I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I think that was emphasized, the importance of sales tax on our general fund and what that does to fund some of our emergency response and public safety. So, and along with parks, trails, roads, everything else we have to pay for here, right? So I don't want to belabor this and read through it, but do you have any area where you want to start, or if you'd like, we can kind of put it up on the screen and go over it.
Yeah, Rusty. Now, just looking at this RFP checklist, this is super helpful. I appreciate it. One of the things that caught my eye was the proposal time. You have 60 to 90 days. I just don't want to. I mean, that seems it's only 3 months. I mean, and maybe I'm just wondering if we should. I don't know. I get the feeling we're trying to get it done before the end of the year if we move this forward. But I also want to make sure we give them enough time that they can give us good proposals, because we're not looking for in my opinion, on this parcel, we're looking for someone who knows what they're doing and is a good group to look at this and develop it properly.
Do you have a suggested time frame that you'd be more comfortable with?
I'm asking. I mean, I was thinking 120, give them another month, 4 months, because it takes a month to work on it, and then it takes time to put it together. but that was just one of my thoughts, was 120 days, like 60 to 120 days. Not saying they can't submit it early, we would recommend but I also don't want to, but I'm going to ask for your recommendation in the fact, because that's how it works in my field, is that you wait around till the last month and then work on it, right? So that's the other thing to think about too, because you're like, oh, we got to get that in, let's work on it. But I also want really good proposals, so I don't want to be too short.
I would also say we've been dangling this out there for a long time. So a lot of the interested parties have already started working on it. In fact, a lot of them are well through it.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
We've had people bring us unsolicited proposals.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of, and the big developers know how to do this fairly quickly. We're not asking for super detailed proposals, but we do want to be able to see exactly what they're going to do and get it done. But we're not asking for full drawings or anything like that at this point. So,
well, it's just more of I just want them to have the ample time to give their vision to us in their proposal, so we can look at the vision that they have and not just be, hey, we plan on doing X, like I don't, it's going to be hard for us to say, okay, that's great. Well, what's your vision? I want to see their vision.
exactly.
So if you feel comfortable with the 90s, I'm fine with it. I just wanted to mention that seemed a little short to me, but
I think from the engagement that we've had so far, I believe that we'll have some really strong proposals within that time frame. However, if we feel like we haven't cast a wide enough net, or we would like to see more, we could always extend that time as well. Or if we have people saying, hey, we're interested in this, we could always extend that out maybe another 30 days at a time. That would be up to the council.
so
I agree. We shouldn't rush, and we want a good proposal.
How will that be communicated with us as council? Is that Jeremy will be sending that out in an email, or you? I just want to make sure we're communicated, saying, hey, we've got some good proposals that have come. I mean, they're coming in.
I would set what you're comfortable with right now, and we'll assume that that's the deadline. If we started to get a lot of information back from good developers that wasn't enough time, we would need to come back to the council to have you move the deadline. So we don't want anyone to say that in some way the process wasn't clean or wasn't, so I would say if you're more comfortable with 120 days, let's just make it that right now.
I'm just asking the group. I'm just sitting here thinking maybe I'm expecting too much out of these proposals too, but I'm expecting some good proposals that have good ideas and what they're proposing on the property in the partnership of it.
We're more interested in getting it right than getting it done quickly.
Yeah,
but we also don't want to make it so long that we waste a lot of time.
We still have the option.
Iron's pretty hot right now, so
we still have the option to say we don't like any of these. Mm-hmm. We're not moving forward.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Well, then, I mean, I am comfortable with whatever the staff is comfortable with. I just wanted it did look short to me, but if you're comfortable with it, you've had the interactions, not me. So,
well, I know people are chomping at the bit to get going. They would like to get moving, but most of the developers who would be able to do this are well aware of the project already. It won't be a surprise. So I think I'm comfortable with the 90. Are you comfortable with 90, Rusty?
Sure, yes.
And then if we get, like I said, if we get that feedback, we'll bring it back to you and ask you to extend it.
Does that sound okay, council?
I suspect since the interchange idea has been out there for a couple of years, you've probably got several really good possible developers already kind of chomping at the bit. So I feel comfortable with 90 days, and then like Jeremy said, if we get a little feedback that it's not quite long enough, we could always extend it if needed. So
We've had a lot of people come to town just to visit the site and take a look and walk the property. We also had our IT department, IS, is it IS? I want to get that department right, Steve. They did some drone videos so they could get line of sight, and the more information we can get out there to the development world, the better. And all of those had been linked on the Coming Soon map. And I try to push that. It's great for residents to let them know what's coming and what's already been approved, but then it also has the development opportunities for the city-owned parcels, this one and the Buena Vista Triangle that we'll bring before the council at a later date. But it's generated quite a bit of interest, and there's quite a bit of information that they can already gather. When we post this RFP, we'll put out the PDF of the property and also a CAD file that they can download so they can start building their site plans right away. And then, of course, I'll be available for any other questions that they may have. And
So,
are we feeling good about 90 days or?
yeah, it sounds like we're good.
Okay.
I think the council is in agreement that sounds fine.
Okay, and then that start date, I think we can have this ready as early as July 1, depending, but we can move that as well.
Is there a reason why you can't hit that start date?
Only if
it's-
there's any major changes to the RFP.
Okay. I'm like, because that's next week, so I just want to make sure you can get it done.
Yeah, I would like to, it just depends on if there are major changes and what the council thinks of the draft, the RFP draft. So another area of the draft, I guess, that I would draw to your attention is the elements that we're requesting. Please include the following elements in your proposal. It's on page 7. And then the proposal evaluation criteria. So the completed proposal form, that's just part of the packet. That's just to make sure we have contact information and it's submitted to the city in a way that we can track those and make sure that we receive them. Proposed site layout and project vision concept plan, conceptual design plans and renderings, including site plans, building elevations, and floor plans where those are applicable. Sometimes they're not with commercial. We don't have the elevations, but we can at least get the footprint. Project timeline, I think, is an important one. Any applicable phasing, absorption, and estimated start and completion dates. Project budget and financing plan, estimated property and/or sales tax revenue generation over time. As these projects come in, I'll be communicating with the people who submit them to gather some of this information, if it's applicable to their development that they're proposing. And so this kind of it goes back to our priorities for economic development, sales tax, property tax, what the median wage is, how many jobs they expect it to bring to the city. That's part of our traffic problem, is that we all leave Washington City daily to go to work or to buy groceries. And so it's part of the traffic issue. But if we have a little bit closer to home, that'll alleviate some of the traffic. We also want to look at the relevant experience and qualifications of the development team, including previous developments that they've done and their success with that. So we'll do a little bit of vetting of that. And then just how it fits into the overall economy and community. And a lot of these details will be worked out with the council's chosen developer. So we'll ask them to submit those up front, so we have as much information up front, but then those will be put into a development agreement at some point that will also come before the council for your approval.
This is really well done, Rusty. I think you've hit all the important points, so it's very, very well done. So
Thank you.
So Rusty, I really like it as well. Councilman Henderson is right. I appreciate the way it's brought. I love the fact you made about sales tax, property tax, and then the buying power through well-paying jobs. And to me, I think the direction that I would offer in this, where we're asking for proposals to come to us for our consideration. It's not us saying this is what we want there, but this was what I think that is the metric that I'd like you to continue with myself, is what generates the best property sales and paying jobs for our citizens, because ultimately that's who needs to really benefit from this project. It'll be there a long time. But, I parrot this a lot, but we know sales tax is 65% and property tax is 35% of our city income. So we appreciate this. And I know that there's been some excitement about this property for a while, but appreciate your efforts and look forward to see what comes of it. Council, do you have anything else for Rusty you'd like to?
I have a couple of questions. So it has to do with your exhibit on the drive accesses where UDOT's not allowed the access. Mm-hmm. I also think we need the same thing on Buena Vista for us, because that's a right turn lane. I don't think we should allow access right there. The access should be lined up with Brio Parkway. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that there's no access along that segment. I don't know if you want to pull up that exhibit.
Which segment are you talking about?
The exhibit, so in the proposal, it says driveway accesses are not allowed in the marked areas in red, which are along the UDOT,
Basically along Main Street, there's no access to the parcel.
which
That's-
makes sense. But what I'm saying is also the north side that runs, if, do you have the proposal to pull up or no?
It's in the packet. It's one of the exhibits. I'll give Steve the page number.
The north side,
Page 4.
Page 4. So I just want to make sure we're clear. And then my other question is, we're not at this time in this proposal talking about any of the property on the east side of the new Main Street, which potentially could be a parcel as well.
it actually, I don't believe it can. I don't believe we own that. I think that ended up with UDOT, and that'll be some sort of detention area.
I thought the detention was on the north side.
Paul's going to come talk to us, but that's not our property, is it? The remainder on the east side of Main Street?
Yeah, so that's a federal highways restriction. The other stuff would fall within our access management. We wouldn't allow that there in that right turn pocket. So I think we could be covered there.
I just don't want to mislead them.
Yeah,
And so,
that's
because
an
we're
option.
identifying this, I just think we should circle this red as they're not allowed on, no accesses on here because of
East of Brio Parkway.
east of Brio Parkway.
Okay.
I just because I was like, well, wait a minute, are they going to try to put it on our right turn lane? That's all I was trying to say.
Almost everyone we've talked to recognizes that the best spot to access this as a large development is at Brio Parkway, and that's intended to have a light at some point. And so that'll just be the best way in and out of the parcel. And there may be some sort of, we're gonna have to have second access a little further down Buena Vista somewhere, or the road that comes to the boilers or something, but
So,
we'll mark that.
so the property on the east is not the city's anymore.
Does not belong to the city. I believe that's correct. We'll check that, but it would be extremely difficult to access.
So the east side, but there's already an access identified, for. That's where the detention's going. Okay.
It's not part of this piece though on the survey piece.
I thought the detention was on the north side,
Oh, no.
but if it's not, the northeast corner.
You got to come up here if you're going to talk, Paul. I'm sorry. Tara has a button and she buzzes my chair if you talk from the thing.
Well, don't
Talks
tell
me.
me that or I won't ever come up.
That's right.
So the detention pond in Brio, for the Brio subdivision is getting smaller with this. And some of that goes into that detention pond on that east.
Southeast corner.
Yeah.
But what's going on the northeast where Main Street was?
Oh,
Where did that property go? Is that going to retain in the city's property, or is that?
It's accessed for our substation, but I don't think you can develop anything.
There
There's
are some public road issues that may need to be cleaned up with vacations in the future. We've decided that we won't decide those until after the project's done. And that would really,
So we would either
have to come to
put them on
council.
for sale or work out something at a
not
later
at this
date.
point, yeah.
Not at this point. Okay.
You'll see the old Main Street has a number of what are right now considered public roads that we need to decide what to do with, and it'll be a discussion with council and our technical staff as we decide what is the right use after the new road's built.
Yeah. So what threw me off was just we had our red lines on both sides, so I was thinking that we were doing this side as well, even though the plat map didn't say it. So that's what confused me.
That's
But-
logical. I can see where you're coming from there. Maybe that's UDOT doesn't allow it, so they don't want the city to try to access from there. I don't know, but I'll get a better drawing that includes everything east of that Brio intersection,
Great.
and drop it into there before it goes out.
I just wanted to be clear to him, so I appreciate you updating that, Rusty.
I think one of the things that's interesting about this project, normally we're sitting in the defensive position. People come to us with what they want to do, and we're, as a city, we don't get a lot of choice in what happens a lot of times. This is an instance where we actually get to be partnering with the developers, and one of the things that they'll bring us is the price they'd like to pay for the property, and we can weigh the price versus what they want to do with the property and all those kind of things. So
So can we, in the RFP, I mean, we're talking price per acre, but what if there's a partnership?
Yeah, I think all of that can be proposed.
Because
by-
that's what I would like to
proposal.
see, is that we still have control of the property and we just work with them and then we get our money. Like, I like that concept where if we're not looking for the money right away, but we're looking for the right project where we're the landowner, is the city, the residents are the landowner.
So that's why I think rather than a bid, we're not taking a high bid on this project. We're saying, bring us your proposals.
Okay.
And we could certainly look at something that maybe we would accept a lower price in exchange for a much better sales tax producer, because that benefits the city in the end. Or, you know, I don't think we want to limit any of the creativity that somebody might come up with, but I think we'll look at all of those things. But it's just interesting because usually we're on the defense. And in this case, we get a little more say in what happens. The second thing I would note, and maybe for anybody who watches this, is that we would certainly want some sort of a clause where the property comes back to the city. We're not interested in somebody purchasing this and land banking it. We're looking to have something developed here. We have the interchange, we have the excitement that's happening right now. And I don't know if everybody recognizes, the city sold this property once before to a developer, and it came back to the city because of inactivity. But we would like to see this happen this time. So there will be a lot of negotiation that happens after the proposals come through.
Got one, just one. It's a super nitpicky on number 6.
Page 6 or
No,
number
just
6?
number 6 on your information for respondents. I know we're pushing sales tax revenue, so if we can just swap, so estimated sales and or property tax, because we want to emphasize the sales tax versus the property. That's just me.
I'm happy to do that, yeah.
Super simple fix. Thank you.
Super simple and a great comment. Thank you. The CPA in the room, there you go.
It just, for me, it better lines up with your presentation. The first item you put on there is sales tax base. So just flow for me, it just.
I like it, and I always
better.
appreciate another set of eyes, or another and another and another and another and another set of eyes. We do want to get this right.
Yes. We appreciate your work on it. We're excited. We've heard some rumors, so we'll see
Don't
what
believe
comes
the
of it.
rumors. Don't
No.
spread the rumors.
I just say the word rumor, but I never spread them.
Right.
I think Rusty's made up half the rumors just to generate some interest. So it's really good.
That's good marketing, though.
No, we have seen there is a lot of interest. It's an excellent piece. It's the center of the projected population growth. The incomes are really great in this area. There's a lot of selling points, and it's just beautiful. The line of sight's great. I will also note, you know this already, but I'll note maybe for the public and some of those developers that are really interested in it that may be listening in. The widening of I-15 is already underway. The interchange will be put in. We're expecting that to be around fall of next year to completed. And there are sound barriers that are going up. None will be on the north side of I-15, so there will be no impediment to that line of sight. So really great views from I-15 and great traffic counts. It's a great location. We should expect a wonderful development there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rusty. Council, any discussion before we move on? Good? Councilman, okay. Okay, great meeting. We looking for a motion to adjourn, and then we will reassemble at 6 p.m. for our regular council meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman
Second.
Henderson. Second by Casperson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. 6 p.m. We'd like to welcome everyone that's here in the council chambers in beautiful Washington City and all those that are listening in at home. This is a public notice is hereby given that the Washington City Council will hold a public electronic regular meeting on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 6 p.m. It'll be hosted here at Washington City offices located at 111 North, 100 East in Washington. And also the meeting will be broadcast live via YouTube link at washingtoncity.org/meetings. And that can be viewed after the fact, of course, as well. Tonight, we have a special guest with us that will be offering our invocation. This is Sister Deanne Martin with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that also serves on the Interfaith Council. And we appreciate your service there as well.
And as a representative of the Interfaith Council, we'd like to thank you for asking us to say the prayer, and all the different faiths that are represented in the Interfaith Council enjoy coming here and saying the prayer for you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we bow our heads with grateful hearts for this wonderful country that we live in and for this lovely area in which we reside. We're grateful for the opportunity to elect representatives and pray for a blessing to be with them this night, that they will have wisdom and empathy and even common sense as they make rulings that will affect others. We ask that thou will bless them for their service and their families, and thank thee for all of our many blessings. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be offered tonight by one of our local heroes, Lieutenant Corey Clocks of the Washington City Police Department.
All rise, please. Repeat after me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Council, please note that we have no need to go into closed session tonight. In the way of announcements, I have one announcement, and then Council will turn it to you to see whatever you have that you'd like to be announced. But the tradition continues here in Washington. On July 4th, we'll have our Independence Day celebration at Veterans Park. Of course, city offices will be closed, but the Lions Club will hold a celebration from 7 in the morning to 2 p.m. that afternoon right here in Veterans Park. The day will start at 7 a.m. with a pancake, egg, and sausage breakfast. And then at 8 a.m., you'll be entertained by the Nyson Band, starting at 8 a.m. Then at 9 a.m., the Lions Club will have their annual auction. At 9:30, the a.m. Kids Carnival starts with barrel train rides, food trucks, things like that will be here. Fun for the whole family. Then at 10 a.m., a fan favorite every year, I know Barry Blake can attest to this, the foot races that will begin at 10 a.m. right here at Veterans Park as well. And then at noon, they will be selling burgers and chips for lunch. So, just as a side note to this, we appreciate the Washington City Lions and their service for years, making this celebration for generations to enjoy. They've literally been doing it that long. So we really appreciate that and would invite everyone to come to Veterans Park on the 4th of July for that celebration. Council, any other celebrations you'd like to mention?
No, I will be driving a tractor for the Lions Club on July 4th, so it'll be super exciting.
We'll watch out, Councilman.
What are you plowing?
Are you trying to incentivize or decentivize people to come?
Take it for what it is.
Is that another word for lawnmower, that you're cutting the grass before?
Well, we're going to show up and find out.
All right.
Any other announcements, Council? Thank you. Any declarations of abstentions or conflicts, council? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Hold on, Mayor Pro Tem, sorry. Trying to find it real quick.
Okay.
Help me find. I am talking about the award of the bid. So through my consulting firm, I worked with Sitla, who's our client, to work with the city, but there's no financial gain. I plan on voting on it. I'm just declaring that I did work with the city on that through my professional services.
Thank you, Councilman. You're always very above board with that. We appreciate your service there. So in the consent agenda, if any council members would like to pull any item for further discussion, please feel free to make that known or make it part of your motion. Just a note as well that bids are no longer in the consent agenda, that they will actually be individual agenda items from here on out. We're finding that we're having discussions every time we want to have good conversations and talks about the people's money. So there'll be a separate agenda item here on out. So just for your information. So 4A in the consent agenda is approval of minutes. This is a consideration to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of June 14th, 2023 and June 21st, 2023. Looking for a motion, council.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda as outlined.
And then let me go ahead and read the second one. I apologize. The second one, the amended final plat that's also in the consent agenda, consideration to approve Majestic Fields partial final plat amendment A, located at approximately 3250 South Washington Fields Road. And now that'll work.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll amend my motion to include item 4A and 4B.
Thank you, Mayor. Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Coates, second by Martinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So now we have an award of bid. This will be handled by our city engineer, Paul Mogul, as you're coming up. This is a consideration to award the bid to JP Excavating for $5,177,980.75 to Washington Fields Road from Warner Valley South of Stuckey Farms towards the new ARA project.
Excellent. Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm Paul Mogul, and as you had mentioned, as development increases around the airport and south of Warner Valley Road, this project will extend the Washington Fields Road to the south to accommodate future growth. This project features 401,000 square feet of asphalt, 11,723 feet of sewer, 11,880 feet of water, and other miscellaneous features that go along with installing a new road. On June 9th at 10 a.m. in the Public Works Building, bids were opened and publicly read aloud. We received 6 bids that were all lower than the engineer's estimate and very competitive. The low bid being JP Excavation in the amount of $5,177,980.75. And we would recommend approval of the low bid to JP Excavation. And I'm available for any comments or questions that you may have.
Council, any questions for Paul?
Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to say that it's so nice to see some of these bids coming in, at decent prices now compared to what they have been the last few years. So that helps us tremendously with our.
I do have a question on that. Why do you feel they came in? Why do you feel the engineer's estimate was that much higher than the bids that came in? Just curious as to what you might attribute that to.
I think that's a good question. I don't know exactly the reason. I think we are seeing low bids, so I think there's an element of that. I don't know if the engineers were just a little high on their estimate.
I think
I'm
the
not
big
sure.
thing that's happened is the engineers have now adjusted their bid estimates based on the new numbers we're seeing. I don't think we're seeing lower prices, and we're seeing more competitive prices, which is nice. But as far as, if you go through the line item, there's stuff that's way more than it used to be 2 years ago, but the engineers are, it sometimes takes time. I always appreciate to make sure that we're a little higher so that we have a budgetary number to work from.
Yeah, very well put. I agree.
So I think it's interesting also that we actually had 6 bidders this time, where in recent past, we had 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, it's been pretty scary in the past.
But we have a good working relationship with this company, and they've worked for us before. I know that they're a good company that we can trust. So, council, any other questions or you'd like to ask anyone? Thank you, Paul. I think you sit down now. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm ready to make a motion if.
Okay,
I'll
please.
make a motion. We award the bid to JP Excavation in the amount of $5,177,980.75 for the Washington Fields Road and Warner Valley South project.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, Coates motion and Martin says second. I'm not sure if this is roll call or not, but we're going to do a roll call. Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Coates?
Aye.
Casperson?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Congratulations. And just as a footnote to this, there's a lot of work that goes into this, a lot of stuff behind the scenes that it's hard to get all on the same page and correlate this. And especially want to appreciate or mention our property owners, our landowners out there that worked with the city and was able to get this signed and done before the deadline. So we appreciate that moving forward. Next we have number 6 is a preliminary plat. This is a consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Cottam Industrial Subdivision located at approximately 1300 East Washington Dam Road, and the applicant is Rosenberg and Associates, and our city planner Eldon Gibb will be presenting on this item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Cottam Industrial Subdivision located at approximately 1300 East Washington Dam Road. This particular subdivision is proposing 7 lots on an area covering 14.10 acres. The zoning designation at this location is Industrial 1 and Industrial 2. The surrounding zoning is also Industrial 2 to the north and east, and Industrial 1 to the south and west. The grading and drainage requirements will be completed by the end user with the improvements to their specific parcel. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on June 21st, 2023, and recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the Cottam Industrial Subdivision. And that was on to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions as stated in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Eldon. Any questions?
Eldon, I did watch Planning Commission, and I noticed that they did, I can't remember why the vote was.
It's a lot of contours.
What was the discussion, brief on the discussion, because 2 commissioners voted nay on this.
There were some viewpoints about the storm drain system, and there was even some discussion about a motion of recommending denial, and I had chimed in and commented that as proposed, it did meet city standards, and that it would be inappropriate to recommend denial on the basis of meeting city standards. And so the comment eventually became, well, I would suggest that it be done otherwise. And so that was the main content.
So they don't.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Can I ask one question? Just out of curiosity's sake, Drew, on the newer, I know, this area fairly well, and the lots have their own, detention ponds and that. On our newer industrial subdivisions that come in, do they also have each lot with their own, or do they have like a community detention or retention basins, or how is that going down?
Most of them go with a collective common area way because it is easier and they get more usable land. But because this is coming in taking existing lots, wasn't a full-blown, they're expanding it and making a few extra off of existing. They didn't have that, I guess, freedom or ability to be able to do that. So with the lots being the size they are, I don't have any issue, and I don't think Public Works did at the time about that, because, and that was one of the commissioners thought, well, the lots are going to lose so much. And I'm going, well, if you go across the street to that subdivision, that all those lots are smaller. And I was going to show that, but I thought it's not worth it. But so I'm not as concerned, because they'll have room to put their water. They still have to put the landscaping out. I always tell everybody, take advantage of that landscape area, make it a depressed area. You can still put landscape, but it can hold water. There's lots of options they have.
That makes sense.
So there's just a lot of contour on it. It's going to be challenging, but I think they'll have to figure it out and abide by the code to figure it out per lot.
And I think because the lots are a little bit, even though they don't look that big, but you look at the square footage on them.
Yeah, they're big.
There's some room there.
Yeah.
And they're just going to have to deal with it to, if they want that piece, they'll do it. So.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about what's the paperwork that we've talked time or every year. What does that entail, just out of curiosity?
I'm not sure I'm following your question.
Is that
the LID and the detention? Come in, that
everybody has to do
everybody has to do it.
Every HOA, every subdivision has to.
I know. I was just curious about what it entails.
It entails you certifying that your detention pond is to the correct size and there's not overgrowth of weeds, and it's kind of like same volume of water. Now, does everyone do it? I don't know, but HOAs, that's typically why you have the HOAs to handle that. But it is, I don't know, it's part of the paperwork. It's kind of new.
Yeah, so now they'll have 6 or 7 inspections instead of just 1. And that's the choice that they had to make, and the one that worked out best for this particular location.
I think it's good to note that there was no public comment made on this item as well.
For a motion?
I would love a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a preliminary plat for Cottam, how do you say that? Cottam? Industrial subdivision located at approximately 1300 East Washington Dam Road.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Casperson, second.
I'll second that.
Second by Martinson. Henderson?
Aye.
Coates?
Aye.
ID is an aye. Casperson?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item, we do have need for one public hearing tonight. I just want to mention before we get into it that this next item is a housekeeping item that we do every year after adopting a new budget. There are no adjustments to the new budget, only the old one in closing it out. So you'll notice that in our paperwork, it will show that it's for the 22-23 budget. Yeah, just for information, is there anyone in the audience that came to speak to this item, the public hearing for amending the budget? Okay. No one for sure? Okay. Then I'm going to forego the spill. And council, ask you and staff to take notes during the public hearing and give you the opportunity to speak after I close the public hearing. This is a public hearing and consideration to approve a resolution opening and amending the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget. Our finance director, Brian Brown, will present on this item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So this is the final budget opening for fiscal year 22-23, which runs from July 1st, 22 to June 30th, 23. So I have a summary here. In your packet, I gave you this summary, and then I listed
bullet points of what was included in this budget item. So in the summary, I'll just highlight some of these. In the general fund, the main reason for this increase is for a transfer to the general capital projects for land purchases. The community center, we saw a huge increase in natural gas, just like electricity. They called me, we reviewed it, and so there's a $150,000 increase for natural gas. And then there was a Sunrise Valley Park secondary water design that was not included in the budget, and so that makes up a majority of that 1.8 million in the general fund. The Washington City Foundation. So the reason why this is we receive funds throughout the year. People donate, and so we don't always know what we're going to receive. This year we received funds for the Covington and the Canine, so they expense those. So we're increasing for those items. The Municipal Building Authority, we're actually decreasing that. Originally we budgeted 10 million, but the project, we moved that to next year. There's only going to be, we left about $300,000 in there for excavating. Then also when we were reviewing the final budget, we did not budget the debt service for the Wheels Park, so we had to include that in. So that's why it's not the full 10 million. The capital projects, there's about 2.8 million in land purchases. There's an additional 37,000 for the remodel, and then also 800,000 for the transfer to the debts or MBA to pay the debt service. And then on the power, the increases there mainly due to the power cost increase. So our current budget's 123 million, and we're adjusting it to 126 million. So it's about a $3.1 million adjustment. Do you have any questions about this budget amendment?
But the adjustment doesn't mean it's an increase, just an adjustment.
Yeah.
Any questions for
Except
Brian?
for the power cost. The power cost is truly an increase.
Council, any questions for Brian or staff before I open the public hearing? Okay. Thank you, Brian. So I'll go ahead now and open the public hearing for this item. It's no surprise, I have no takers. Okay, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and turn the time back to the council for any further questions that they might have and or a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the, sorry, I thought I was ready. I'll make a motion that we approve the budget amendment from 123,775,808 to 126,950,723 with an increase of $3,174,915.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Councilman Coates, second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Martinson. Councilman Coates?
Aye.
I am an aye. Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
Martinson?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson? Thank you. That motion passes. Thank you. We now have at the resolutions part of our agenda. This item, just for information, was already discussed and talked about in our workshop. It was the number 2 agenda item on our workshop. So this is a resolution which is a consideration to approve a resolution adopting the Washington City Records Management and Retention Plan. And tonight we're going to have Deputy Recorder Lexi Roosh present to this. The next, she's probably coming. The next two, is she here? Oh, there she is. Okay, yeah, come on up, Lexi.
Have any other questions for me?
Well, I know you did a great job answering questions in the workshop. Council, do you have anything additional for Lexi?
I don't have any other questions. Just again, very good job, very professional on the work on this. We appreciate that. So,
Thank you.
Okay. You don't want to give her a hard time while she's here, first time up? Okay. All right, we do want her to come back. Thank you, Lexi. That's a good job. Okay, if you're ready for a motion, council?
I'll make that motion, Mayor Pro Tem. I move that we approve a resolution adopting the Washington City Records Management and Retention Plan.
Thank you. Motion by Councilman Henderson, second.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Casperson. I will start off the voting with aye. Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
And Councilman Coates?
Aye.
Thank you. That item is also approved. And again, appreciate the hard work on that to keep us streamlined and efficient. We appreciate that. So the next two items on our agenda are setting our city tax rates. Some related information is the county sets the city tax rates that actually went down this year. They use a formula that when property values go up, the rate goes down to maintain the same amounts paid. This process is called ad valorem. So reading the first resolution, consideration to approve a resolution setting the property tax levy for Washington City calendar year 2023 at 7.00740. And City Manager Jeremy Redd has this agenda item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I feel like the tax city manager. This is 2 meetings in a row. We're talking about taxes, but this one's going to be a little bit easier. I'll skip this slide as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned. Talks a little bit about ad valorem property tax revenues. So in essence, we take last year's budgeted revenue divided by the current taxable property values for this year, and the county sets what's called the certified rate for the city. Our choices are to take the certified rate essentially, or choose to increase the rate, in which case we would have to go through truth and taxation. So we're not recommending that. You can see here our rate last year was 0.000753, and our rate this year, the certified rate, is 0.000740. So it's gone down a little. It didn't go down as much as it did last year, which means that the property values didn't increase as much this year as they did the previous year. So that's kind of interesting to at least recognize. This is how we got to the calculation of new growth. It's kind of interesting to see that our the actual total value of our community, if I'm reading that right, it's a little over $5 billion. So that's how much the total value of everybody's property taxed properties, a little over $5 billion. And you can see that we had new growth last year of $476 million, a little over $476 million. So they take last year's number, they add the new growth, put the rate on it, and that's how we end up with more property tax than we had the year before, $352,725. So our projected revenue, $4.3 million for 2023. And then this is the slide that I feel obligated to talk about every time, just to really help people understand what their property taxes do and how they're calculated. I raised it last year, if you remember, it was $400,000. That probably doesn't give you much of a home in Washington these days, so I raised it to $550,000 for our purposes of our slide. If it's your first home, you get a taxable value of 55%. If it's a second home, you pay 100% value. Commercial also pays 100%. And you can see here of that, the Washington County School District takes the bulk of that at $1,500. The county and the city are fairly similar, just a little over $200. The Water Conservancy District, $125, and then Councilman Henderson's Mosquito Abatement District, the greedy mosquito abatement takes $6.96 a year.
I move that we increase that rate.
Make it 7.
That's the wrong meeting for that. That's the wrong meeting for that. You got to do that in your mosquito abatement meeting. So a total for this year with the new property tax rates would be $2,142. And then I didn't put this last year, but just a little side note, if you're in Coral Canyon and you're in their special improvement district, you would also pay an additional $447.70. So the number one question that I get is when does that end? Ends in 2027. So we're getting closer all the time, Laurie. It's one of the reasons why I don't love special improvement districts or PIDs for residential, because you can see that it's almost twice what we collect as a city to handle that special improvement district. So it's quite expensive.
Jeremy, how many new rooftops did we, increase this last year approximately? I mean,
750, Drew? 700?
About 700. Wow.
That's just single family homes though. And then we added multifamily to that. So, but somewhere in that range. So that's my presentation, and the two resolutions that you have before you recognize this certified tax rate. It's the rate that we approved in our budget, be the recommended rate for the city. That's all I have, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Any other questions, council, for anyone that you'd like answered? Let's if you're ready, let's go ahead and have a motion, just if you'd be sure to include the amount in your motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve setting the property tax levy for Washington City calendar year 2023 in the amount of 0.000740.
Yeah, it's a motion by Councilman Coates. Second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman Martinson. Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Coates?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. That passes. The second resolution that we have for tonight is for, you should feel special, Lori. This is just for Coral Canyon. So you have your own item here. So this is a consideration to approve a resolution setting the property tax levy for the Washington City Special Service District in Coral Canyon calendar year 2023 as 1,224.001224. And city manager also has this agenda item.
Okay, is the same as the one before. So I'd recommend, again, the certified property tax rate, which is included in the resolution.
And the payoff on that's expected in
2027. Yeah, the only way that would extend out is if the city chose to refinance the debt or something like that, which I can't imagine at today's interest rate. So it'll likely just expire in 2027.
Okay, and thank you.
I guess one more comment. This rate we do set, the county doesn't set this one, based on how much debt service payment we have to pay. So this is one that we, Brittany helped me look at it, decide how much debt we needed to pay, and then we set the rate based on that to collect that.
Thank you. Council, if you have no more questions, we're looking for a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution setting the property tax levy for Washington City Special Service District in Coral Canyon calendar year 2023 at the rate of 0.000740. Isn't that what it says?
Yeah, this is the...
There's a typo then on the tax levy resolution.
Yeah, just...
All right, I'll amend my motion for 0.001224.
Thank you, Councilman. Motion by Councilman Coates, second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Martinson. Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Coates? I am an aye as well. Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Okay, we're down at the ordinance section now on our agenda. For this next agenda item, just to note, none of us were on the council when this was taken, so that's why we've done our research and tried to learn a little bit about this before we talked about it tonight. And I know the council has done a great job in preparing. So, it's important to note that the public hearing for this item was held at Planning Commission meeting on June 21st. The council has received all the comments in our packet and emails, and I can assure you this council does their homework. We read them, we reach out, we do what it takes to be very informed on issues like this. I know this, let me see. Okay, so what the ordinance is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-23-08 Redwater subdivision to remove stop signs located along Country Way. The applicant is Curtis Larson, and city planner Eldon Gibb will present on this item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. On August 28th, 2019, zone change request Z-19-08 for the Sunrise Valley Planned Unit Development was approved by the City Council. During this approval, City Council added the condition that four-way stop signs be added along Country Way at all of the intersections in this residential development. During this zone change, public comments were received and expressed concern with traffic. The City Council discussed options such as raised sidewalk crossings, speed humps, bumps, roundabouts, and stop signs. And the condition of adding stop signs along Country Way was approved. Curtis Larson, who lives in Sunrise Valley, has gathered video of the area and noted 3 safety concerns, along with environmental reasons why the stop sign should be removed. Attached in your report is a link to that gathered documentation. And in that, he notes 3 safety concerns, which are overuse of stop signs causes drivers to ignore the stop signs. The second item is drivers tend to find path of least resistance, forcing traffic through the neighborhoods which do not have stop signs. And lastly is stop signs are not effective for speed control and can actually increase vehicle speed. Environmental concerns were also noted and include noise and pollution, vehicle wear and tear, and unnecessary use of fuel. And also a federal manual on uniform travel control devices states there should be a minimum of 300 counts to warrant the stop signs. With this being said, staff supports City Council's condition of adding the stop signs along Country Way and is always open to discuss options that may increase safety for the public and general well-being of the neighborhood and community. When discussing, please keep in mind that the amenity area for the entire Sunrise Valley subdivision is the park area, which also serves at a trailhead connection point for the larger trail system that follows the river and connects many miles of trail. So it's a very high trafficked area in and out of that stop sign there. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on June 21st, 2023, and made the recommendation to approve Z-23-08, removing the stop sign condition, with the added condition that the city will review the stop sign requirements and have a technical review looking at the crosswalks, striping, flashing pedestrian signage, speed bumps, engineer brakes, signs, and to manage traffic enforcement in the area, and to not remove the stop signs located along Country Way at this time. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Eldon. Council, any questions for Eldon or discussion that you'd like to have, please feel free. The time is yours.
I don't have any for Eldon, but more for the council when it's time.
You can stay there if you'd like, Eldon, just in case if we need to ask you some questions. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I think we all watched the Planning Commission. Some were here, some of us watched it. I look at this and I'm like, it's tough, right? Like we have 4 ways all the way down to help prevent some of the industrial areas we have to the north and south of this property. To clean it up, I do have a question for Thad. Can we make 2 motions on this, or can we only make 1?
I think you can make 2 motions on an item. I guess the question would really be answered by what the content of those motions include.
So the first thing I want to talk about is I kind of agreed Planning Commission was like, yeah, why is it here? But it was attached to their zone. I would like to remove that condition and then address in 1 motion and then deal with the stop signs as a council action to move forward. That way, in the future, if anything has to come up, it's just back to the council and not going through the planning commission, because I felt like they didn't feel like it was their place to even make this decision. It was just a planning thing we had to do because of the way the condition was conditioned on the development of the project. So I'm just trying to make that clear.
And the ordinance tonight is specifically a zone change, which would change the zone requirement that requires these. I think the council could take a motion on that and then give some guidance in a motion on perhaps what you would like those signs, how you'd like them to be handled in the future.
So, and we can do that in a minute after our discussion, but that's what I'm thinking is, hey, let's remove that condition and then handle the stop signs as needed. I do look at this as, I do believe there should be some stop control because of the nature of the industrial area surrounding it. And in the future, we will get, hopefully we get that road that goes from SR9 down to the SR7. And if that road's, it'll alleviate, and at that point, it might make sense to remove the stop signs versus not having them. I do think it's excessive amount of stop signs. I drive this road quite frequently, and I'm like, oh, another one, right? Another one. And I get the intent, but I think maybe we swung too far, and maybe we should pull some out and leave some in. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Pretty sure we should leave the one down by the park. Besides that, I think the one on the north shouldn't be in, and in the middle, I don't know. It's up for discussion. That's kind of where I'm landing right now.
Appreciate that, Councilman.
So I'm kind of having similar thoughts to Councilman Coates. So I think if we decided to leave this just up to traffic counts, probably all 4 signs would get removed because it's not that busy. But it's a little bit of a unique situation because we have this nice residential area surrounded by these industrial areas. Plus you add the landfill plus a batch plant plus a gravel pit. And so I'm guessing that this residential area probably gets 5 to 10 times the heavy truck traffic that any other residential area would get. And so I'm kind of seeing the wisdom of the previous council for wanting to do something here to help slow the traffic down. I go to the dump quite a bit for my job, so I've been on this road many times, and I mean, I'll be honest, those stop signs are highly annoying. They're just horrible. But I can totally see the residents of the neighborhood wanting the stop signs to help slow the traffic, especially of those big trucks. The big trucks, depending on how big they are and how heavy their load is, can take anywhere from 1.5 times to 2 times the stopping distance of a regular car. And, the nature of these subdivisions with the price points that they have, you're going to have a lot of families. So I'd be in favor of keeping, if not all 4 of them, at least 2 of them. So.
Go ahead, Drew.
Everybody kind of saw me drew a little bit, but I wanted to, before we got too far, appreciate that. That area in purple is an industrial subdivision, and it's kind of popular right now. I think, what would you say, Ellen, 25% to a third of it's already built or under construction or more? So I just wanted to bring that to attention. We didn't really get to that in the planning commission meeting, but as I looked at that, I'm going, oh, I think we need to have that in your discussion tonight, just because that is a very popular industrial subdivision that's filling up fast. That means just more traffic on that road. I just wanted that to be brought into the discussion, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Drew. We know that's a growing area, and I know there's other interests out there as well by other developers, but just in the way of a note, we talked a little bit about a bridge that would come across from the south from the D.R. Horton project going north. Just for information, that is on the radar at MPO, but it is not in any funding module at all. It's estimated to cost right around $100 million, just a rough estimate. So that takes a while to get on the funding. And when you realize that amount that's going to be required for one project, that nixes a lot of other projects. So that's something that probably will be there in the future at some point, but I don't know that we can rely on it anytime soon, other than just knowing that it's in the works at some point.
The only comment I want to make before we move on, I think, is it piggybacks on Councilman Coates' comment. This is the reason that we don't normally include stop signs in zoning, because then the only way to even have a discussion is to go through an entire zoning process. And we probably have thousands, I don't think that's an exaggeration, of stop signs in our city. And we don't want to have these discussions about every stop sign. This one's a little bit unique, so I encourage you to remove it if that's the way you're headed from the zoning, just so it can be dealt with in a different way. It kind of takes away the idea that, neighbors come and have different ideas. We handle almost all of them very correctly and appropriately, and they do change depending on traffic counts and depending on safety issues. And I think even our city staff and our traffic engineers would take into account what's built around it, the truck traffic. So I don't know that it wouldn't warrant any stop signs, but we seem to do a pretty good job in most areas. That there's a reason why we're doing it this way this time, and I would encourage you to remove it from that.
Appreciate that, Jeremy. That was one thing that the Planning Commission wanted, was a traffic study. I don't know if I want to spend money on a traffic study today, knowing where we're at, because our crews can do it, but it's just, I'd like to see more build out before we go down that road and determine what makes sense, because I truly don't think they would warrant on at least 3 out of the 4. And when I say that I don't think they'll warrant, it's because just the nature of it, but you don't know until you do the study. But we have, what makes the most sense in my mind is keep a couple, but that countryway is meant to handle the traffic. It's built wide enough, it's big enough, it's supposed to keep traffic moving, but it is nice to have a little reprieve a couple times throughout to help on those long straightaway roads. I think it's kind of nice. It's been beneficial in some areas of our city to have 4 ways. Like examples, Main Street and Buena Vista. Could you imagine if that was, that should almost be signaled, and it probably might be here with the interchange, but it's been a 4-way for a lot of years and it works quite well. So, but there's a lot of traffic there too. So if there's no more I would like to make a motion on the first part.
No, perfect.
So I would like that's all right.
Please. Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion that we remove the condition of the required stop signs along Country Way, with further discussion on how we handle the current stop sign situation.
Okay, a motion from Councilman Coates. We have a second.
Second that.
Councilman Martinson will second that. Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Coates?
Aye.
I am an aye. Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
And Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Thank you. So I'm wondering at this point, Council, if it might be beneficial to have our Public Works Director and City Engineer to come up to just maybe give us some background and information on how these stop signs are placed, because our staff makes those determinations using the uniform code and information that they have. So if you gentlemen would like to come up, and then Council, if you have any questions, please you go ahead and come up. Then it might just help in that process to understand, because I think the question right now where we're at is, do we want this to go to a traffic study, or are we confident? Well, we are confident in our staff, absolutely, but are we comfortable with just letting staff make this decision rather than initiating a traffic study?
Yeah, we do the studies, and when we do a lot of that in-house. I'll let Paul kind of describe the process.
Yeah, so the applicant that submitted this was they did their homework, and they're pretty well versed in it. So the Federal Highway has a manual on uniform traffic control devices. A stop sign would be a traffic control device. So it's commonly referred to as the MUTCD. And in the MUTCD, for a 4-way stop, there are certain criteria that you need to meet, and traffic being one of those conditions. I went out there, we tried to set up some cameras to do a traffic count so we could do a full-blown traffic study. our traffic counts that we put out there kept dying on us. We put them up and they died. We put them back out there again, they died. So I just went out there and just sat at all 4 intersections myself and counted the intersections and the cars.
He did not die, by the way.
Well, yeah, I saw
Is that why we
Councilman
got?
Coates driving by.
Is that
us,
why
and he
Lieutenant
stopped all
Klotz
the
got
way.
the creepy guy sitting in a truck call to the police department?
Yeah, I've been called many things, and so creepy guy at a corners, I'll take that one. Yeah, and I'll just make note, Councilman Coates made a complete stop when he came through. Yeah, it was complete. It was good. It was good.
It's because I saw him there. I kind of figured that's what he was doing.
Yeah. Just strictly on what the MUTCD requires for a 4-way stop, it doesn't meet, none of the stops meet the requirements as of right now for a 4-way stop. There is potential, again, the whole area is not built out, so if we want to, my recommendation would be to eliminate all 4. However, I would be, I think you could entertain the idea of keeping the one there at the trail. If you were going to keep one in the middle, I would keep the Fort Creek Drive one. It had more side traffic than the other ones. But based on the study guide that you would go off of the MUTCD, none of the 4 would meet requirements as of right now. However, if you wanted to keep one, keep 1 or 2, the one there by the trailhead, you're going to see more pedestrian traffic there, and probably the one at Fort Creek Drive.
Well, it's important. I mean, that's one of the things that we do for liability and to protect the city is to follow these because they've been established. And so when you do get into situations where there's an accident or somebody has something, they may want to say, well, that shouldn't be there, or there should be a stop sign. And when we have these standards and we show that we've followed them and we've done the studies with it, that actually protects the city because then we've done what was reasonable and what we could do in that sense. So it does help us. I think, well, I'll let Thad say, but in past cities that I've been, that's been the common practice is to follow that, follow those. And sometimes you do get citizens and others that are very concerned and excited and say, well, somebody has to die before we do anything. But we do these things based on a specific criteria that's kind of nationwide, and it really protects us in that sense.
And that's why we can't put stoplights, just because there might be requests. It has to make 3 of the 18 warrants.
Right.
Thank you.
And I appreciate those comments. And just for the council, I always like to be, I mean, sometimes it doesn't warrant it, but sometimes it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's get ahead of the schedule a little bit. I mean, I remember past people would tell me it doesn't warrant. And it's frustrating because you're like, but it will in like a week. So let's just get going, right? Like, and literally it was 6 months later, it warranted it. And it's like, okay, why didn't we just move forward then when we know it's coming? I'm not saying it's gonna come on these, but we also got to look at the reality of the situation because those codes aren't written based on all the nuances we're seeing in this area. But I do agree with you on everything you said there. So thank you, Blake.
So, Mr. Segmiller, did you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
I was nodding, affirming what Blake was stating, which is governments are a frequent target for liability. State law, it has legal doctrines of governmental immunity. And one of the better practices to keep the immunity that state law gives us is to adopt standards and follow the adopted standards. And so this is an area where the city council kind of went and said, we find that this needs to apply regardless of the standard that we've adopted. If I was to ask, is this a risk area that we worry about? And at the top of our list, the answer is probably not. We've got other areas that are more risk prone than this, but it's certainly an area where we've got traffic controls signals in the place that meet our standard and doesn't follow the policy that we usually implement to establish stop signs.
Thank you. Drew?
And I'll just add on my side of that on planning. This is unique though. Most cities won't plan a city out like this. You won't go from industrial to residential to industrial. It's kind of, I'm not saying it's bad planning, it's just not normal, but it's something we have been given. And with that said, my other point to this is that this is a planned unit development. This city awarded them to have one amenity area. That amenity area is a park, and it's on one side of the road. And so just from that perspective, I agree I'm fine with the two, and it should be Palm Cove. And I do agree that it probably should be Fort Creek because of the location where they are and helping kids get from that northwest side of the road to get across the street to head down and play at the only amenity area in the whole PUD, is how I kind of look at that. So, plus the people were given this, under the conditions that they were. The road at the time was bad. The other thing is this place is not built out by any means yet. Both the industrial and the housing units in this whole area have a long way to go. The traffic's only going to be going up more to meet some of those numbers that you're talking about. You go back after I have all this place built out and you'll be busy counting. I can just see that. Just again, that I need that to be part of the food of discussion, to be mulled over there, is that at least my opinion would be Palm Cove Avenue, Fort Creek Drive, because of the unique circumstances, amenities, what's on each side, etc. So, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Please.
So just to go along with that, Rachel and I went up there Monday night in the Jeep for a little Jeep ride and up and down that road a couple of times, and there were kids out crossing the street, and even, it was 6 o'clock at night, there were still dump trucks going, and I was a little bit undecided, even though I've been on this road a lot. And that night I was like, you know what? There's a lot of kids crossing the street to the park, and anyway.
So gentlemen, while you're up there, can you talk? A lot of our public comment that we received and reviewed talked about crosswalks, flashing lights, those type of things, and maybe identify, is it an idea that we use stop signs to control speed, or just kind of help us to understand those things a little bit, because those were mentioned a few times in the public comment.
In the MEPCD, it does talk about using stop signs to control speed, and that's not the intent of a stop sign, to control speed. So if you're putting them up to control speed, I would recommend against doing that. They're crossing, if you want to, when I was there at Fort Creek Drive, I saw a couple kids crossing the street. I think the four-way stops work. I don't know if you want to put up one of those flashing beacon signs. I don't know that I have a strong opinion one way or the other. I would know at Palm Cove Avenue, where the park is, so you have the bridge that goes under the road, and you can access that bridge on both sides of Country Way. When I sat there, I didn't see any pedestrian crossings at the park. You have the parking lot that's on the park side, and then you have access to that trail on both sides of Country Way. I didn't see any pedestrians crossing there. However, as that all develops, I don't know what that will look like, but anyway, just as a side note. But as far as your questions about the flashing signs, I don't know that I have a strong opinion one way or the other. I think your stop sign works for a crossing.
Okay.
Yeah, and the flashing, generally you wouldn't have those combined with the cross. That would be if we took out the stop signs and you wanted to put in something to help them feel protected as they cross in a certain spot, but that would generally, you wouldn't have them in conjunction with each other, but you'd have one or the other type of case. I mean, there are crosswalks that are at the, stop signs, and I've seen them also where they do the flags and things like that when they're going across. I don't think that this warrants any of that in this case, but certainly I can see the point there where you've got the two Fort Creek Drive and not necessarily, I mean, there is sidewalk on both sides, so there is the option that they can still walk down and cross if you had a stop sign at Palm Cove, or decided to just take them all out and put a crosswalk that would flash in that sense. So there's some little bit of options there, but it really, again, it would be kind of we'd want to follow the warrants for those type of things based on the MPTCD. But yeah, that's kind of what.
So it does the traffic count according, like for a warrant, you just focus on the traffic count. What are some of the other?
There's also crash data. Do you want to go through kind of there's several.
Yeah, so the crash data is one of the things, pedestrian crossings another thing, where you want a certain number, you want 200 crossings in an 8-hour period consistently. There's different criterias. If the main one would be traffic, accidents, pedestrian crossing. Those are kind of your main ones.
To note, bicycle is considered separate from pedestrian, so also bicycle.
Right. So that answer your question?
So I have just a few, and I'll kind of ask all three of them because they're all kind of related. So we talked about percentage of build out. We're not quite there. What would you say that percentage of build out is? This might be for Drew. What's the time frame for the remainder of the build out? And once it's built out or along the way, where would you foresee those stop signs, stop lights, whatever it is, being warranted as we look to the future?
Well, I'll let them get to what they need. I'm guessing right now 50%, 50. I mean, it's going to be plus or minus, somewhere around in there. I'm got feeling if not even a little less, because I still have most of what's that? No, we're talking the resident portion. So it was awarded 532 or 34 homes, residences, and I would guess that there might be 250, 260 there, but growing.
And then knowing the building permits that are pulled in this area, how long do you think the rest of the build out would take if you were to guess? Your best 30-year judgment guess?
I would say probably a year, maybe a year and a half, but probably within a year, I think you could have that filled out, but no longer than 2 years completely.
Thank you. And so knowing that, as you were out there counting, knowing that there's going to be more than, around double the homes that are out there, plus more of the industrial, where would you, just again, your best guess, your best estimate, knowing that you've been doing this, where would you see that those stop signs would be needed for when the traffic studies were to come in?
Those same locations, by the trail or at Fort Creek Drive. And around there. So on your side streets, you want to average, to meet the traffic warrants, you want to average about a car every 40 seconds. And you're getting right now you're getting a car every 6 minutes. And if that's half build out, it goes a full build out, you're a car every 3 minutes, you're still not quite meeting those warrants. That's at the busiest one, which was Fort Creek. The other, Oak Creek, was a little busier. Palm Cove, not as busy at all. And the Tributary Drive was pretty low numbers. Fork Creek Drive being your busiest one. And so a car every 6 minutes.
Okay, I only asked because Councilman Coates and I were talking about, there was a four-way stop put out by our places of employment. And I don't know that it really warrants it, but it has made, from my perception and from how often I drive that, it has made it a little bit safer, avoided a few more accidents. It took a little while for everybody to be trained, but we don't have a stop sign every street, so.
It did warrant it though, eventually. There was multiple accidents there, that's why it finally got put in.
Yeah, and if you have this many, you get stop sign fatigue, and then also everyone, if you stop, some people speed up in between stop signs to make up for the time lost, so then you kind of have that factor if you get too many stop signs as well.
I would think as this builds out, we have a greater need all the time to move traffic as well. So I think that's called, I don't know who used it earlier today, but they call that jackrabbiting. Is that what that is? Where they speed up and stop and speed up? Any other questions, gentlemen? Ma'am? Okay. Thank you. So what I was hearing is, as we were having a discussion, is we really have some options. Of course, one is to leave it the way it is. One is to remove all of them. One is to remove two of them. It sounded to me like that there's overwhelming support, not only in the public comments, but here tonight to keep the stop sign at Palm Cove. Seems like the logical place where it's right there by the bridge, and there is crossing, and you could cross underneath the bridge as long as the water isn't too high, correct? Where the path is.
Yeah, the water only reaches the trail during flood stage. It's not during normal stage.
It's not up there, okay. So those are some options. I appreciate the motion that was made earlier to remove the condition. I think that was a good move. But I think now, I think the question that we need to probably ask ourselves is, we have qualified trained staff here at the city. If we're comfortable with allowing them to make the decision, whether we want to bring in an outside traffic consultant, or if you want more discussion or anything else, council, I'll just listen to what your lead is.
Can I just add something? When
Please.
I watched the planning commission, a dad mentioned that he has a child in a wheelchair, and he felt like that trail going down underneath the bridge was really steep, and so they were, they never used it. And so I think that also we need to take in consideration those that, may not be able to go underneath the bridge for different reasons.
So I understand that, if we just turn it over to the engineers and it's based strictly off of traffic counts, that, these stop signs will probably disappear. Because I'm not seeing that there's any room in those studies for the unique circumstances that we have here. And so I'd like to, I think part of our decision-making process as a city council is to, to kind of use our brains, so to speak, and our common sense in the city when we do have special circumstances. And I kind of feel like this is, a bit of a special circumstance. And anyway, so I'd like to see us maybe keep at least the bottom three there, stop signs. As I was, going through the area and paying attention to it after this all came up, I could see that maybe the one up on the top, the Tributary Drive, at least right now, isn't as crucial since it's on the top end of the whole development. But I kind of feel like, the Fork Creek, the Oak Creek, and the Palm Cove, You know, what I just can't get out of my mind is seeing a fully loaded dump truck coming down the road at 35 miles an hour. That is a heavy, big load, and it takes a while to stop one of those. And when you've got kids running, you know, like Drew says, the amenities are on the one side, so you're going to have a lot of kids, you know, going across the road. And so, you know, just being familiar with dump trucks because of the business that I'm in, I mean, those things are hard to stop, and I think it's probably a good idea to have some stop signs there. And so I would say get rid of the one on the top, because I'm not seeing that that's as useful as the others, but the other three, I think, I'd rather err on the side of safety for the kids. So.
Thank you, Councilman. Just want to remind you that the ordinance tonight is a zone change request to remove the stop signs located along Countryway.
So we've made the motion to remove that from condition on the zone change. And so now it's.
You made the motion and took a vote on that.
Yeah. So now we're just saying what we're doing on the stop signs. So I agree with Councilman Henderson. I was down to 2 in my mind, the Oak Creek Drive one. The only reason why I'm hesitant to take that one out is because that's like the main access for that whole southeast corner. Because otherwise you'd have to go through the park, and the road's not even built right now. And so my thought is, let's just look at it in a year. Let staff look at it in a year. And if it doesn't make sense on Oak Creek at that time, or Palm Cove or Fort Creek, we can do it as long as they come back and give us their data and see where we're at.
So let me just be a little bit of a stickler here. We typically don't bring stop sign changes back to council, because I think everybody can understand why we wouldn't want to do that. We'll have a lineup outside our door of people that want to add or subtract stop signs. But it sounds, I think what you're really saying is make your recommendation of what you'd like to see today, but then you know, let the staff, as things change, adapt as we do everywhere else that seems to cause. But make your recommendation of what you'd like to see us do today, and I think we'll stick with that, recognizing, like Thad said, there's a certain amount of liability, but it's not a high risk issue.
You know, and I agree with those comments. Our staff is very capable, and they understand the liabilities going both ways with this. If we have something that shouldn't be there, or vice versa, I understand that this is a charged topic, and we'd like to be able to see it going forward. But we can also evaluate this going forward if we hear of continuing concerns. We can always have staff reevaluate it and look at it as conditions change.
I think I'd actually like to see this particular road, if we make any changes, come back to the city council. So just on this particular one, I understand what you're saying. We don't want to debate every stop sign. But for me, I'd like to see that happen, because, you know, 2 years from now, you know, I mean, we got half the staff wanting to keep stop signs and half the staff wanting to just go with the warrants. And so I think this particular spot for now, I mean, we do have some additional possible roads coming in the future, which would alleviate a lot of the stress on this road. And maybe at that time we lose all the stop signs or keep one. But for me, you know, I don't have a problem. I understand what you're saying about we don't want to debate every stop sign in town. But I think this particular one, it's a unique enough place and a unique enough situation that I think, I mean, I don't have a problem revisiting it in the future, so.
I agree, Council Henderson. I do have concerns with this road, and I've gone on this many times, and my family and I bike on the trail, and you don't really consider, those warrants don't really consider the type of vehicles that are on that road, and then just how many kids there are there. And I don't really see a better option that is before us, you know, rather than using the stop signs to be able to slow down the traffic. And so I agree with what you're saying, Council Henderson.
You know, the one I kept thinking about during this discussion about the stoplight that was put in there on the corner just north of Staley Farm for the new elementary school. You know, we were saying, how does this not meet warrants? We have people that are concerned there's a new school, that it quickly become our responsibility to get them home safely. And we wanted those warrants to come faster than they did, right? So sometimes I think it does take the common sense that and the judgment that we have as council members to determine what's best for our community. So I'm certainly in favor of that as well, if that's where the council wants to go.
Ready for a motion?
Please.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we remove the stop sign on Tributary Drive. We keep the other 3 stop signs at Fork Creek, Oak Creek, and Palm Cove. That any changes to this will come before the city council in the future.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Henderson, second.
Second.
Councilman Martinson has seconded that. Councilman Henderson? Councilman Coates?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
And Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Good work. Our next agenda item is easements. This is a consideration to approve a utility easement located at 175 West Buena Vista Boulevard, and this will be presented by our city attorney, Thad Segmiller.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I know that I find things interesting that not everybody agrees with, but this to me is an interesting issue, and
That's a good start.
that's part of why, as staff, we wanted to bring it to council, is so that we could make sure that council was just aware of really the process we went through to get here, as well as things that are being put in place for an item that's been on your agendas and will be on your agenda in the future. This came about from the staff's internal process of preparing the RFP for the Main Street and Buena Vista property. The first thing we did, we talked about it a lot. We got together as department heads and we talked this over quite a bit. And we recognized, and I'll zoom in here so that you can see it on the map. This is also in your packets, but we recognize, you'll see here these black letters. The surveyor listed various types of existing uses that already are in the ground and underway at this property. And so one of the first things we wanted to do is try and get a feel for what we actually know is in the ground. This parcel's had a bit of a Leatherman's tool application for the city over the years. There's things in the ground that aren't necessarily well documented. And so part of what we were doing is just to figure out what uses were already there. And so this survey reflects the site visit. You'll see here at different points, it talks about what uses are observed in the ground. The other thing we did on this survey is we wanted to just talk about the future uses the city would want on this parcel in the event that we were to sell it, or if the council were to approve an RFP where it became privately owned. You'll see here the city had a 20-foot drainage easement that's already documented and recorded. Staff talked and said, you know what, we would really like a 30-foot easement. You'll see the red text right there. We'd like a 30-foot easement there. And that 30-foot easement includes the possibility, it includes a future public recreation trail if the city so decided. And so the document in the packet, which really, it's not the type of document that we usually ask the council to make a motion to approve. In light of this one, what it does is it adds a 15-foot public utility easement on the east, north, and south, east, north, and west parcels or boundaries of this parcel, and then a 30-foot public utility and trail easement along the freeway or the south boundary. And, it took a while for staff to get there. We used some professionals to go measure and study the site. We feel like that's going to protect the city and the existing uses as best we can as it goes through the RFP process. What questions might you have on this really interesting topic that I think only a few of you fell asleep on?
Are there any trees on this property that you would like to discuss?
Unfortunately, there are not any trees. The Shade Tree Committee has not even reviewed this proposal because of that.
I enjoyed everything you said, so I even read the legal descriptions.
It was interesting. You're the type that likes maps like this, and they are interesting. There's a lot going on this parcel. There's a lot that crosses it and crisscrosses it. It was a very good exercise for us to get all our department heads together and talk all this through, and then ask the question, what do we want to make sure we still are able to do here if the council decides to accept an RFP proposal and move on with something? And so the easement document that's in your packet is the mayor's signature conveying an easement from the city to the city. What that does is that gets recorded, and then if the city conveys this parcel to somebody else in the future, there will be an easement right remaining on record to Washington City that the city gave to itself when it owned the land. And so that also is a kind of a unique transaction. Use easements from one party to another. In case we're wanting to make a record of to ourselves, right, in preparation of the likelihood that it might be transferred to some other owner.
Thank you. Council, any other questions?
I'm just wondering, Mayor Pro Tem, if there's anything left after we do all this, or what the acreage is. I
guess we better wait and see. We hope so.
Okay. 11 acres of utility and 1 acre to build on. That's good. So, it just looks busy.
Motion and/or further discussion?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion that we approve the utility easement located at 175 West Buena Vista Boulevard.
Thank you. Motion by Councilman Coates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Martinson. Councilman Coates?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Casperson? Martinson?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously as well. Our next agenda item was one that we did speak about in our workshop meeting earlier this evening. In this discussion, this is where we will be discussing an RFP. And for those that are at home that might be listening or not know what RFP means, that means it's a request for a proposal where the city in this case has identified property that we would be interested in selling. And so we put out requests for applicants to come and bring a proposal to the city to see if what their ideas are, if they would work for the city, and then we would actually sell the property for new commercial development in this case. Council, we want to give you plenty of opportunity to discuss this, to talk about it, to give Rusty ample direction on what you'd like your input to be as she creates this. This is a consideration to approve and proceeding with the RFP for city-owned property at 175 West Buena Vista Boulevard. And again, Economic Development Director Rusty Hughes, if you'd like to come and present that, and then Council, I'm sure will have some questions and maybe give some follow-up direction.
As we went over this in the work meeting already, I'll just summarize some of the edits that we made. So you did get a copy of the proposed timeline and with the 90-day open period. So I'll just go through. The first one was a small edit to in the wording for the submittal inclusion to prioritize sales tax, so that it's in line with what was previously stated in the summary. Second one was to move, I had suggested 60 to 90 days, and council wanted to do a 90-day open period with that opening on July 1, so then the close date would be October 1 for a 90-day period where that's open for proposals to come into the city. And then the last one that I have noted, and please let me know if I missed any, but the last one is the access map. We wanted to update that to make sure that that there was no access allowed from East Brio Parkway along Buena Vista towards the freeway. So we can keep that intersection at the new interchange clear. Did I leave anything out? Okay.
I don't think so. Any follow-up questions for Rusty?
Just appreciate your work, Rusty.
Thank you so much.
Just appreciate your work. Thank you. You answered all my questions in the work session. So.
Okay, great.
You know, we really do, Councilman. That's a great comment. We understand the importance of building commercial properties in our city. We understand that that helps offset the tax burden that our citizens have to pay when we can bring in sales tax to our city. So this is good work. Council, if you are ready for a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the RFP for city-owned property at 175 West Buena Vista Boulevard.
Motion by Councilman Martinson, second.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Martinson. I will start the voting. Casperson, I apologize. Councilwoman Casperson, second that motion. And I will start the voting with an aye. And Councilwoman Casperson?
Aye.
Councilman Martinson?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Coates?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. We're excited to see what comes from that. Brings us to our report of officers from assigned committees. Councilman Martinson, you always seem to start us off in such a good way. Let's continue that.
Well, we'll keep mine brief. The only one I've had to attend thus far is the Investment and Audit Committee. And I'll just continue on with that trend that we are in good hands. That team does a wonderful job with City Manager Red helping them. And I feel really comfortable with where we're at on our investments and the audit.
It's nice to have our city treasurer here with us tonight as well. Appreciate you being here, Brittany. Councilman Henderson.
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Coates?
Yeah, just a couple things on the investment committee. It's with the interest rates going up, it does help our bottom line because we make more money off the money that's invested. So it's gone up a few $100,000 in the last couple of months, which is nice. So it is good, and it's bad at the same time because it's at interest, but it's good to help us with the dollars we do have. So I appreciate everything Brittany does and Jeremy keeping us in line and fiscally responsible with the public's money.
Appreciate that. Councilman Coates, good hands with you and Councilman Martinson working on our investment committee. We appreciate that. So what I have tonight is we had a very good meeting this last Tuesday on Zoom with the State Water Working Board. And this is a great group of people that brings different problems from around the city. There's 7 people on this committee, and all kind of around the Wasatch Front, and then there's us down here at the southern part of the state. And I appreciate being able to serve on this with this group. But let me just talk priorities, and if you ever have any questions about this, please reach out and let's talk about it. We have very unique water needs down here, and so we're advocating strongly for those. But the one thing that we are talking about right now is our water priorities. And we need to make some regulatory changes to realign agencies to be more efficient. It's just, I think I mentioned before that one of the biggest frustrations that I've had on this board in conjunction with other stuff that I work on when dealing with municipal and regional water is the numbers. They're just all over the place. There's no real way to get a real boundary of exactly what water is being used or what's available. And so working with different agencies, that's important to find out what we've got so then we know what to do with it. The next thing is to build on Utah's water conservation efforts. We've made tremendous effort. I think we've reduced our water use in our city in almost half in the last couple of years. That's a great start. And then the last thing I'd mention is maintain and improve our current water infrastructure. So infrastructure is important. We have great partners at the Water Conservancy District. We appreciate them. I had a great meeting with Zach and Carrie last week where we identified some items on this group that I work with and them, and how we're going to work in conjunction to kind of fulfill what we feel like our priorities are. But, you know, the one thing that I mentioned to this group was that the real challenge for us down here in southern Utah right now, that we've had a very wet year, the wettest year on record after historical drought for 20 years, is that we have to remember what we've learned, and we have to continue to use that. We're learning how to use less water, to find better resources. And all of this, really, it comes down to one thing, and that's money. You know, we're in need of you've heard Mayor Staley talk recently about the need for a reuse pipeline. That's what the Conservancy District has identified as a great need for our area. That takes a lot of money to do that. So I don't know if that's any consolation or not. It just takes money to solve all of our water problems, but at least we have that ability. But I will keep you informed on this. And again, if any of you would ever like to come to one of these meetings or sit in on a Zoom, it's very informative. There's some great people on this that are working really hard with that 6-member Colorado River Commission from Utah on handling some of these issues. So I appreciate that. Councilwoman Casperson. Anything? Okay, thank you. Okay, that moves us to the city manager report.
Give an update on a couple of projects. I think everybody's well aware of the Main Street project. I think this is going to be an interesting one to watch. You could probably have a picnic on Main Street right now if you wanted to, south of the interchange. And I think it's going to be a difficult one when that does open up. That traffic has been so slow, but the project is going along well. The contractor's working through some utility conflicts, but they're moving along well. Our staff is attending coordination meetings, so we're in the mix. We talked a little bit about George Washington Boulevard East. We have now finished the road all the way to the new interchange that we just approved tonight, or the bids came back tonight. It is closed because it doesn't access anything right now. So there's some barricades up. There's really no reason to have people driving on it at this point, but it is finished if you want to go look at it. And we finished our 2023 slurry seal project. So each year we do that. I think you've seen some of the streets that were slurry sealed, and that's impactful to our residents, but it helps add useful life to our streets. And then Power has also finished the Main Street switching upgrades at the top of Main Street. So they're out of the way now of the construction, and that'll be a great project as soon as that interchange opens up as well.
So do they have a new slurry seal staging area because they lost the one up?
We're going to have to find a new area to stage a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe the new owner of that property will allow it to just continue to be used for that. We'll see. I doubt it, but that's my report. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Red. So as we mentioned earlier tonight, there is no need for a closed session. Just in summation, just want to share my appreciation for staff and for each of you for your work and diligence and for being prepared and serving our city. I appreciate it. We welcome our mayor back for our next meeting. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Second by Coates. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We stand adjourned.
Recording stopped.